Welcome to this edition of Blind Ambition with Jack Kelly. I have an amazing guest today, Jayesh. And what I want to do is just hand it over to you to give a little bit of color about what you're doing now as an SVP with Salesforce. How did you get here? How did you get to be this AI guru way before anyone else was really on the bandwagon?
Well, Jack, thank you for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here. A little bit about myself. I'm Jayesh. I lead Salesforce AI organization on the engineering and the data science side. So a lot of products we build on the Salesforce ecosystem that infuse AI into the daily work. Also, the platforms that we build that serve these amazing models that change how work is done. That's what I do at Salesforce. I came into Salesforce through an acquisition. I had a startup that focused on AI, machine learning, large-scale data science on text data, so natural language processing, which is the foundation for a lot of language models. We came into Salesforce and the team helped build out a lot of the technologies that are used in Salesforce. I've done my stints at startups and big companies, building large-scale systems, and then going and building entirely new startups from scratch.
When you started with data and AI, this was like, what, 8+ years ago? To my knowledge, from an outsider perspective, that seems to be early on. I mean, AI was out there, but we don't have that gold rush that we have now. So were you kind of one of the forerunners in terms of AI back then?
My introduction, if you will, to AI and machine learning has been through search. Large language models themselves have history and were birth based on solving search problems. And I think search is such an amazing crucible for innovation because it brings together lots of sort of disparate things that require AI to work in sub-second response times and at scale. Imagine what happens when you type a search query. It understands who you are. It understands the intention of your query. That's a natural language processing component. Fetches results back at scale from billions and billions and trillions of documents and to just those documents that you care about. That's targeting. And once you have the results, it ranks the results based on your propensity to click on something. That's also an algorithm for ranking. My foray into AI has been through search. At Salesforce, my team built one of the first machine learned search ranking algorithms that is still being used today. Broadly, I'd say from an AI perspective, about 8 years ago, we launched our first set of Einstein products within Salesforce. A lot of these Einstein products were envisioned as in the flow of work type systems, which is imagine you're an account executive at any of the companies that use Salesforce today. The leads that are ordered and the order in which you call your customers should be sorted by your propensity to close the deal. So there's a lot of data that goes into building that predictive model. If you need to predict the ability to close a case, is also another predictive model. These are all systems that are in the flow of work. One, two, are predictive in nature. The first foray in Salesforce is to build this in the flow of work systems for our customer, do it with trust, do it at scale, do it with safety top of mind. And these are systems that generate close to 8 billion predictions a day, massive scale. Then maybe about 2.5 years ago, we got into the whole transformers game, which is how do you understand language? Some of the state-of-the-art systems at the time were transformer architectures. So if you talk to Salesforce's Einstein bot system as an example, and you use the chatbot, that leverages the first generation of transformers, which is based on BERT and other technology. And about 2 years ago, we looked at what we were seeing in large language models, which was just incredible. And we quickly pivoted towards asking, hey, how does this new technology come into the enterprise? What do we know to be true and what do we know to be unchanging? And one thing that's unchanging is that customers want this to be in the flow of work. They want this to be deeply integrated into their data stack. They want this to be safe. They want this to be trusted. They want this to be per tenant and personalized. And what we've launched in the last year and a half is a testament to just how fast the space is moving, how quickly teams need to reorganize to bring these technologies in such a way that creates impact, is of true value to customers, and users derive value every day.
Is everybody sharing the same data set, or Salesforce has its own way of doing it, OpenAI has their own way, and then so on? How is that working?
So the data sets, so there's a common crawl data set, which is pretty much shared by open source large language models. In the LLM space, it's like a Cambrian explosion of large language models. As you can see, there are open source models coming out every day. Llama 3 came out and a few months ago, Mixtral was another company that came up with an amazing open source model. All of these are based on data sets. The first data set was the common crawl data set, which is the open internet crawled. But then over time, a lot of these both open sourced and closed sourced companies are creating data sets that are wider, that have more representation, differentiation that each of these companies and models have. The data that goes into training models is different. The way it is tuned is different, which is why we have the diversity of models that we have right now.
I've interviewed for some Forbes pieces. People are using it to have AI recruiting, for AI job seeking. It's you can have the large set of data models, but then also it seems like a lot of niches are forming where people are just focusing and taking all that data, and it's recruiting, it's hiring, it's a job search. Do you have any sense of where this all is going to go? Is it going to keep escalating, or is it going to plateau, or like is AI going to take over all jobs? They not create jobs?
There's two aspects that we should sort of explore. One is like, from a technology perspective, where is this going? And then what does it mean to builders and how to build? Then broadly from a user's perspective, people that use this technology on a daily basis, what does the world look like for them? I'm an optimist. There is going to be change. I think the change is going to be for the better. People will build higher sort of tools with higher degrees of abstraction. Taking just the cohort of people that I'm the closest to, which is people that build technologies and build products, our lives have changed as well. There's a lot of technology that is built for builders themselves. Things like copilots that enable you to write code better, be able to test code better, and be able to bring code to life better. The way we build and distribute software is slowly changing. Slowly now, but rapidly soon. We used to deliver software as sort of two-dimensional user interfaces with buttons and toolbars and such. I think that's changing because now you're building and shipping assistants that can wait for instruction, that can proactively execute an instruction on your behalf. I think that's a significant change in how we build and distribute software. From the user's perspective, I think the two things that I'm seeing happening is if you think of a normal distribution curve of workers, you have people that are right of the mean, people that are very productive, people that are sort of on the mean, people that are average, and people that are still trying to figure it out. They are really on the lower end of the spectrum. These tools essentially move the mean to the right. I think what the tooling is doing is moving the mean to the right. Things that people that are experts are going to use it in a certain way. There was an amazing study that was recently published that followed BCG consultants that were given access to large language models, and their performance was tracked. And you could actually see this mean moving to the right, which is actually a great thing for sort of all of humanity, I think, because you can do a lot more with a lot less. And I think that's a good thing. The second interesting aspect is specialization. We built an assistant, and it helped resolve a lot of case tickets. If you lost your internet, you probably write a Comcast. If those interactions were automated to a certain degree, we found that users do other things that are high value, right? So in essence, someone that is a service agent is now upselling product. So are they a service agent or are they a salesperson now? Well, the roles have merged, right? So this merging is happening because the tooling is enabling people to do that. So
Are you concerned that some people may fall behind if they're not adopting AI and trying to use that in their jobs to do better?
I am. I think
Yeah.
that is a concern. I think it is really important that and this is one of the things that Salesforce does extremely well. We are working towards bringing this at scale to customers. We just had a conference called TDX where we taught thousands and thousands of people how to build a copilot.
People, I mean, so people understand when you say a co-pilot.
A copilot is basically takes it a few steps further. Imagine that someone built you an assistant that helps you do post production editing of podcasts. That'd be nice. Now, you want to make sure that that is personalized and customized to you. It learns from you, and it's an assistant sitting there and actually does the right things because you instructed it to do the right things, but also because it has a semblance of an understanding of what good looks like in your world. That happens when you bring in data. So one of the things that we're doing with copilots broadly is we are enabling customers to bring in their data, bring in their instructions, to bring in their actions. In your case, that would be help me edit this podcast. Here's a bunch of tools that I use, learn how to use them and do it for me. And then an interface which lets you look at it all and say, yeah, this did it for me. You want that experience to be interactive. So there's a copilot sitting right next to you that you're talking to. So that's what I mean by copilot. It brings together all the elements that you talked about. It brings together a large language model, the ability to instruct it, along with the set of actions that you want done in context of the data that you bring into the system.
But it can run the whole gamut of anything and everything, right?
Exactly. Think of what will it take to train a good intern, right? And what would you like the intern to do? And how do you build systems that enable others to go build these sort of intern slash assistant technologies? That's what a copilot. The first thing you'd do is you'd give them data to learn.
Mhm.
Learn your policies, learn your practices, how to documents and manuals on how to do A and how to do B. In the Copilot world, that's called data grounding. You would ground the Copilot engine, which is basically the brain, but you're feeding it data so it has context. That's step one. Then what would you do next with an intern once they've read through this, they've understood it, they're going to come to you and say, like, give me something to do. You'd be like, go do this. That's an instruction. But to fulfill that instruction, they need access to the systems that will enable them to do that. For example, in the case of this podcast, they will need access to the editing software.
Mhm.
Okay, that's an action in the Copilot world. You register a set of actions with the Copilot so that when an instruction comes in, it has the ability to bring in the right tool in front of the user, in this case, the intern. That's sort of the three-step process, which is you give it data so it understands and has context about your organization, your policies, your how-tos, your guides. You give the co-pilot, just like you would an intern, a set of tools that they need to learn how to use. Then once that's done, you start giving instructions. Of course, like an intern, the co-pilot can also go ORI, right? So you want to be able to be in the loop and say, oh, do it this way. So in essence, the feedback loops that you would have with an intern are sort of similar. You would give it a thumbs up, a thumbs down. You might interactively get the job done by giving it, progressively more detail on what you want.
And I'd imagine you probably also want to have the human touch from time to time. So let's say for your intern, you may want to check in and have a conversation with the intern just to make sure you're on the same page and not just totally rely upon the AI, right? I imagine
That's exactly right. You always want to be safe, and those are the guardrails. That's the human in the loop guardrail who is looking at the output before saying, hey, this is good or this is not good. And that is also reinforcing signal to the machine learning model itself. The co-pilot also learns just like an intern would based on these reinforcing signals. This was a good output, this was not a good output, and this is why.
This episode of The Blind Ambition with Jack Kelly is brought to you by BetterHelp. For anyone out there who needs to hear this, you are more than your job. Don't get us wrong. Passion for your work is great, but it's so important to find joy, fulfillment, and validation in your life as a whole, not just at work. And therapy can help you get there. We all go through ups and downs in our career. Maybe you're thinking about switching career paths or you're feeling super burned out in your job. You might be struggling with the uncertainty of our current economy or trying to manage the anxiety that can come up during the job interview process. Whatever it is, you're not alone and therapy can help. Therapy gives you a place to talk through what's going on at work in a safe and supportive environment, figure out what goals you have for your life and career, and build the confidence to go out and make them happen. Otherwise, it's easy to stick at the same old, even if it's not making you happy. If you're interested in giving therapy a try, BetterHelp offers affordable online therapy on a flexible week to week schedule so you can fit it into your day. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get started. Then BetterHelp will match you with a licensed therapist based on your needs, preferences, and goals. Connect with your therapist by text, phone, or video call. Start the process in minutes and switch therapists anytime. Elevate your work and your life with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/teamblind for 20% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/TEAMBLIND for 20% off your first month.
Now, let me ask you this. This is kind of taking a sidestep, if you don't mind. How does it feel where like you started way before everyone else and now AI has become the thing? Is it like, I don't know if you've ever had this feeling that there's like maybe a band you enjoyed and you loved and no one really knew much about and it was yours. And then all of a sudden, everybody knows it. And you're like, oh man, everyone knows it. It's no big deal now. Is that like, how did it feel to start out doing data, having your own company, getting acquired by Salesforce, and now AI is ubiquitous. That's what everybody talks about. Are you able to process it even when you speak to your wife and kids about like, how the heck did this happen?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there is a sense of wonder. But personally, for me, I'm not hugely impacted by these hype cycles.
Yeah.
That said, I mean, the attention that comes with it isn't all bad because I think it focuses the ability to bring talent to bear on a problem that's of real significance. We have been able to hire some of the best people in the industry because of this change. That said, for me, I've always been all in on AI, even when it was not hot.
Was it weird for you back then when you were doing AI and you're talking about AI and people giving you funny looks? It's like, why? What are you working on? What's up with you, Jayesh? Come on, do something else.
Yeah, there was definitely some of that. Are there some other greener pastures?
Yeah.
There's certainly some of that. But I think for me personally, and many, many people, also very true for the industry at large, often some of the best work happens outside of the limelight. Most of the foundational work happens, just when people aren't watching. As an example, a lot of the groundwork for these large language models, what the world sees as amazing right now, was laid out way before the hype cycle started. The transformer paper, attention is all you need paper, which you can trace back a lot of the stuff to those two core things. There were transformer models before they were hot, like BERT and others. This has been going on for close to a decade. I don't think me or many people in the industry that are building things, people that are builders, are necessarily hugely impacted by the hype cycle. And we know it'll come and go. AI used to be hot back when we started as well, and then it was not so hot anymore. Now it's back hot. So we've sort of seen the cycle once, and you want to keep building is what you want to do.
You mentioned the hype cycle. Do you feel that it might plateau? Is that what you mean? Like you had during the pandemic, the meme stocks and all that. So is that kind of when you say the hype that you've been doing this for a long time? So you realize things get really hot, maybe get overheated, and then something else new comes along.
It gets overheated, then you have the trough of disillusionment as people start to look at this technology for real. And then after that comes the real growth, people that are deriving, core value from the product. I think there's two waves. There's two waves. The first wave is when a lot of people that are selling shovels and pickaxes, for the gold rush, are sort of benefiting right now. But then the prospecting with those tools needs to happen in the river for the gold to emerge. That's the return on investment for a lot of these systems that we're building, a lot of chip manufacturing companies and stuff. And that's what we're seeing this year. This year, a lot of customers that we talk to are talking about ROI. They're deeply integrating this product into their data stack to build that intern-like experience we talked about. They're deeply connecting the actions and they're using it every day. This is the hard yards that you need to do. And right, we're in, I'd say, stage 2 or stage 3 of a 5-6 step process where customers are implementing this. They're bringing the data together with the actions. They are trying to create these internal experiences, and it's time to make it scale. It's time to make it work. How do you make that become the 8 billion predictive components into the 8 billion generative components? That's the journey we're on.
And part of the scale, what type of people are you hiring for your team? Are they software engineers? Are they AI software, data analysts, data scientists? What kind of jobs are opening
All of
with
the
Salesforce?
above. All of the above. And then I would add to that, you wrote a great article on the rise of the prompt engineering thing. That is also very true. I think the nature of application teams, we're the AI team. We hire machine learning engineers. We hire software engineers that are able to craft experiences that bring this machine learning components to life. We have data analysts because a lot of work we do is about evaluating systems at scale, figuring out if a job that is being done done right. So a lot of this involves a degree of data analysis. We have data scientists and data analysts that are sort of doing that. We are backed by an amazing product team that talks to customers, get that iteration loop going. Going broader, we talked a little bit about what does the anatomy of a application look like. I think it looks very different. If you used to build editing software for podcasts, now you're not doing that. You're building an assistant that will use an editing software to get its job done. It's a different way of thinking about it, right? What will it take for companies to build that? I think that those teams are going to look different. They're going to have a prompt engineer. They're going to have someone that understands the domain space really well. They're going to have someone that has access to data, is able to curate the right data to bring into teaching what to do. They are going to have access to all the tools and be able to say, we should use these 4 tools to go get this job done. So it's a very different way of, how applications will be built in the future, or how assistants will be built in the future. And that's the new bit that coming.
People always wonder, how do some folks like yourself get to where you are now? Is it a little bit of luck? Is it being in the right place at the right time? Is it having the right skills at the right time in the right place? Is it that maybe you got a promotion that just really took you to the next level, or maybe had mentors or coaches? Is there any other things that people who are watching this could take away? Like, how can I get to that next level? How can I grow my career? How can I build it?
That's a good question. If I were to hazard a guess, I'd say, a ton of luck. I genuinely mean that. I think intrinsically, I'm a curious person. I like to build new things. And then over time, I've picked up the skills to build them in such a way that they scale, that you bring that impact to the masses. And that's really what gets me going. For me, the journey has been driven a lot by curiosity. I think curiosity is underrated. Grit is underrated. I think those are 2 key things that I feel like I pivot hard towards. Those are the kind of people we hire. Intrinsic desire to build things and to get them up and running at scale are sort of core things we look for.
I like that. It makes a lot of sense, because if you're curious, you're going to be always asking questions. You're always going to be digging around. And then, now the ball is rolling, and then you get excited about something. And then you probably see this in your office all the time, that person who's excited about it, and you want to work with that person who's excited. You don't want the person who's like miserable and always cranky. So I guess it becomes self-fulfilling. Then if you enjoy also what you do, right, which you certainly do, that helps out too, because then it's work, but it's not work like, you're digging ditches work, you're doing stuff that you like. So then it's like a flywheel, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're connecting the dots too.
Yeah.
Connecting the dots on where you've been, what you've built. How does this impact what you built? You've built a lot of stuff that impact customers today. How can you take them on this new journey? I think you bring that curiosity, that learning, the building of new systems into where you've been as well. I think those sort of connecting of the dots happens a lot faster. I'd also say, I think the one interesting thing that I've learned also along the way is just old-fashioned selflessness. People that see this as bigger than themselves. usually tend to do a lot better. You want that something bigger to lean on, create massive, large scale impact. It has to be bigger than you, right? At least at Salesforce, our thought process, how do you build systems that impact how people work? That's a really big problem to go solve. Technologies will come and go, but that's the problem you're trying to solve is how do you eke out that extra 15 minutes of productivity so that people can finish their work at a higher quality sooner. That degree of like having a mission that's bigger than you, certainly is helpful.
And when you say bigger than you sometimes, because when I hear bigger than you, I immediately go to having meaning and purpose, which I find out for a lot of people in their careers, if they're able to have meaning and purpose, then they get some fulfillment and they're excited and they're motivated and they move forward. Well, this is great. You know what? I really appreciate your patience in asking my third grade questions, but I feel by sometimes being the person to ask those questions, it helps because most people aren't really sure how it works, and most people are always awkward to ask because they're not sure and don't want to be embarrassed. So I think with this podcast, it's almost like a masterclass in what it's all about and how this works. And in just plain English, this is why AI could help you with your job and career in advance and make your life better, make your work life better. I think it gives some really good sense of what it's all about and how it works and what goes on behind the scenes to make this happen.
It was my pleasure to be here, Jack. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you very much.
That's it for The Blind Ambition. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a 5-star rating and a review. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.